everybody out there in Streamland. We're getting ready to do a show. Queuing it up, baby. We're queuing it up. Hang in there. We'll be right with you. In the meantime, you can look at my beautiful face and comment on how handsome I'm getting as I age. That's me. And I'm on. This is Dr. Bill, your radio MD, and I got Ken by my side here, and we're doing a show this morning, buddy boy. Good morning, how you been? Fine. So I heard that the wife left you alone for a few days. Joy, oh joy. Yes, you got to pass on those. So I had a big week here at the hacienda. Um, yeah, my neighbor that moved in, Steve, he was unpacking. He had about 1 million boxes in his garage, and he pulled out about 100,000 square feet of this 1 inch foam board, this polystyrene foam. I guess he had all of his furniture and everything packed away in this, and looks like they did a hell of a job. But at any rate, I said, "What are you going to do with all that foam?" And he said, "Well, I was going to throw it away." I said, "No, you're not." So I repurposed it, and guess what? I insulated my garage door this week, working in the evenings and doing a few panels at a time. And you know, the garage doors in Florida, we have to have these hurricane or storm bars. They're actually long pieces of metal. They're fairly heavy, and you have to. They run uh, parallel to the ground, so they're horizontal, and so you have to have those screwed into your doors. And there's several of them as you go up the door, because in Florida with the hurricanes, the door would just be sucked right out in no time. So at any rate, you got to take those off each section and glue the foam in with some silicone glue. It was a lot of work. The temperature in the garage was 88 to 90 degrees because I'm facing the sun in the morning, and of course it's a metal door. But now I've got it down to 82. Not bad. Yeah, and I'm going to go out and see if I can get one of those $300 roll around air conditioning units where you can stick the little vent out the window or underneath the door and figure out some way to make that work for me. That should be fun. Yeah, yeah, I like it. Yeah, you get some of the humidity out, and then when you condense water, you actually capture some of the heat. The heat's in the can the, you know the water can carry the heat out, so you condense that and you get rid of it, and it seems to help. So gravity feed, yeah, you got to drain it gravity wise. So I just put it up on a little block of wood or something, and then let the hose go through the underneath the garage door. It can't be a very big hose. Yeah. So we'll figure that out. I'll figure out something. I'll get it, buddy. Speaking of alive, I got a patient in the hospital. He came in. Excuse me. He came in. Gosh, it's been about 10 days ago. He came in the office 2.5 weeks ago, and he had just been discharged from another hospital with quote quote pneumonia and influenza. Boy, this influenza bug is running around now, getting a few people and making them really sick. But at any rate, I said, Joe, you got it. Not our Joe at the station, but Joe, my patient. I said, you got to get to the hospital. You're not doing well. Your oxygen saturation's low. You can't walk. You're falling down. No, he didn't want to. He went home. Well, he ended up back in the ER, and we admitted him. And I worked him up, and not only did he have influenza, but he also had a whole bunch of blood clots in his lungs. And and then he went into right heart failure. And this is an interesting phenomena that people don't really know a lot about. People know something about the left heart. They know when the big pumping chamber is not working, fluid backs up in their lungs. But when the right side's having a hard time, the fluid doesn't back up in your lungs, Ken. It backs up in your belly and in your liver and in your legs. And it's very debilitating. And if you have both sides fail, that's not good at all. It can happen to anybody, and this is one of the things that we saw with the COVID. This is what killed people was their lungs would get so clogged up that the blood vessels would constrict in their lungs, and the right heart couldn't push the blood through. So what happens is the blood vessels in the lungs, the arteries in the lungs, they become narrowed and constricted under certain circumstances like emphysema or COPD or a bunch of little blood clots going into the lung or rheumatoid arthritis can cause fibrosis of the lung, and all of this can affect the vasculature, the blood vessels in the lung. Now, the right side of the heart gets blood back from the body that's been already been deoxygenated. It's gone through the tissues. The tissues have taken out what they want and have dumped their waste products, including carbon dioxide, back into the bloodstream. And all this comes back to the right side of the heart, the venous side, the veins. And so then the right heart pumps that out to the lungs where it gets oxygenated and gives off the carbon dioxide, and you exhale the carbon dioxide and some water. And of course, it goes through the kidneys and gets the waste cleaned out, but that's another story. At any rate, so what happens is then the right heart, which is not very thick and not very strong compared to the left heart, has a hard time pumping blood out, and so it starts to fail fairly quickly. The pressures are just too great for it, and then the blood starts backing up in the venous system, which affects organs like the liver and the spleen. The liver, especially because the liver's got a double venous drainage system. Two veins drain the liver, the only organ that does that. And of course, it backs up fluid into the legs and into the pelvis, and you get ascites, which is fluid in your belly. And it's a big deal. And this guy has really had a hard time. We got him down to 4 liters of oxygen now, and we put him on blood thinners to help break up the clots and keep him from throwing more. But his legs are massively swollen, and when I hit him with the diuretics, like Lasix, if I do it too frequently, his kidneys don't like that. So I'm between a rock and a hard place with this guy, and his wife's yelling at me, get his legs swelling down, and you don't know. And I'm like, well, I don't want to kill his kidneys. I mean, chop off his legs. That'd probably be better. And save the kidneys. You can live without your legs, but not without your kidneys. He didn't go. He didn't go for that leg thing though. Do I hear a phone ringing? Oh my God! Can you? Yeah, turn that. Thank you very much. So, yeah. Um, the way the flu vaccine works is that the CDC and the big manufacturers they kind of guess at what strains they think will be coming around in the fall of the coming year of this year. So we're past the influenza projections for what strains will be around because that vaccine came out last fall. So it might help to get one now, but it's hard to say if this is the same strains that we had anticipated last fall. I'd have to consult the CDC and see what their thinking is on that. It couldn't hurt to get a flu shot at this point, but I don't know. I can't tell you whether or not it'll help. You know what I'm saying? So we don't actually know which strain is going to hit in the fall, but we take a guess at three or four different strains that we think will be coming back around. And we make the vaccines now in summer to the things that we think that the strains that we think will be coming through in the fall. So we're about 75% effective on average. Sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little lower, but so you get about about three quarters right, four fifths right most of the time, most seasons. But there's no guarantee. I mean, we could miss it completely once in a while. Yeah, oh yeah, and don't listen to Fauci. Fauci said, "Don't wear a mask. Wear a mask. Don't wear a mask." And that was just a manipulation of the public because initially we didn't have enough masks when the pandemic hit early in what was February of 2020, and so the CDC and Fauci were saying, "Well, don't wear a mask. You don't need them," because we were trying to conserve masks for the hospital workers and the healthcare workers. Then, when we had enough masks, then in May he said, "Oh, you got to wear a mask." And then when the Omicron came around, he said, "Oh, masks aren't effective because we wanted the Omicron to spread." The Omicron strain being a less severe disease, but very infectious, very catchable, so to speak. And so we were hoping that that would help boost up immunity in people who had not been immunized without getting them too sick. So it goes back and forth, but if you have surgical mask and you crimp down the nose and wear it, that's fine. Of course, the N95s work. If you have a two-ply cotton mask with a tight knit cotton, that should be fine too, as long as it's close fitting on your face. That'll block out about 85% of the droplets that the viruses travel on. Now, people think that the viruses are actually floating in the air. They are not, Ken. It is the spray from when people cough and sneeze, and they're micro droplets, like 50 nanometers, and sometimes smaller, but that's probably a good size to look at. And a good mask will get out most of that, and of course the N95s will get out even more because it's a tighter weave, so to speak, and layered differently. But mask up, yeah, mask up. That'll work. That'll work. Did you hear about this Disney executive Mr. Rice, who opposed Governor DeSantis' anti-grooming bill, he got kicked out. Disney booted. They booted him. There was another woman who wanted the job, and apparently the company was taken over. Uh, it bought 21st Century Fox in 2019, and so they had a shakeup, so to speak, and they had a new CEO and new people underneath, and I guess this guy was in charge of entertainment. So he looked at and I guess decided what would be the shows that would be going out for the year. At any rate, Bob Iger was, I guess, the new CEO, and Rice had spent a few months fending off wide rumors that Warner Brothers Discovery chief David Zaslav would tap him to run the entertainment business for him, and of course he didn't get that spot. And then he got a little shocker because they said, "Well, we don't need you anymore. We got somebody else that's going to take the job that you have," and he's gone. And that, and if you are politically incorrect and you're getting people upset, they're like, "Hey, dude, the woke movement is last year," and he said that this bill was a violation of fundamental human rights. And I think basically all the bill is saying is that the parents have the right to know what's going on in the schools, and that the schools can't teach things like critical race theory and can't influence gender preferences and all that. I mean, come on, this is all a bunch of nonsense. And what are you going to do? Change your DNA? We're not at that stage yet. Now, the time may come when you can change the DNA of a child in utero, in the uterus, but we ain't there yet. And you can go in and get everything you want hacked off and added on, and come out and say, "I was a boy, now I'm a girl." No, you're not. You're still a boy. You still got two different chromosomes. You got an X and a Y, not an X and an X. So this is just ridiculous. I mean, we've lost our collective minds. You know that. You realize that. But, well, I think that, first of all, like you say, we tried at the polls. Of course, I'm a little bit impatient. I would just soon, well, or nuke them and get it over with, Is that illegal? I mean, we are just pulling so far apart from each other. It's just ridiculous. I cannot believe how far apart we are, and the well, I don't know. Maybe it's not a bad thing. I mean, look at what happened when Biden and the Democrats came in a year and a half ago. We flooded the market with money, and now we've got this tremendous inflationary cycle going on, and we've got a perfect storm economically brewing because there's too much money and not enough goods, and inflation is rising. The Did you know that the apartment uh, inflationary rate was almost 50% the past year or two? Well, about 35 to 40 last year, and I would say that adding on, because it's cumulative. If you just look at one year, that's one number. But if you look at 3 years where rents went up, and then again went up the next year, it's additive. Oh yeah, Tampa and St. Pete, you can't get an apartment, and if you can, you're going to pay twice what you would have paid for it 3 or 4 years ago. So that's a big jump. That's a big jump. And the crude oil production dropped during the pandemic, and it has not come back to its high of 2020. And so we've got a shortage of gas and oil, and of course, that's going to drive the price up, and then the president and the left-wing loonies, the green people, they did everything they could to kill the oil industry, and so there have been shrinking investments in hydrocarbons, and even the producers are saying, well, why should we drill? Where's the incentive? What are we going to get out of this? It's going to cost us a lot of money, and how long our price is going to stay up? Why don't we just take what we have, and we can make just as much money with less product? You know what I'm saying? Well, yeah, but look at it. I mean, look, if you're cranking out 1 million barrels a day and you're getting $1.10 a barrel, why would you want to double that and bring the price down when you can't find workers, and you know you can't find the workers, you can't find the parts. The real production of capital goods has dropped from the high in 2000. And so we're at you know what capital goods are. Those are heavy equipment. Those are things that you can depreciate over more than 1 year or 2 years. So they are heavy equipment, drilling equipment, things that will be used for a long period of time. Buildings, air conditioners, those sorts of things that are depreciable over a longer period of time. So there's been a real drop in the orders for goods because companies aren't making things. Everything's been outsourced, or everything is slowed down. As you said, there's no workers. The supply chain is a problem, and this is a real economic crisis. It's a tsunami, Ken. It's a real tsunami. And the Philadelphia Fed survey of businesses prices paid showed that almost 80% of the businesses say that the cost of doing business has gone up tremendously because of inflation. Higher input cost. Well, if you got higher input, guess what? You're going to have to charge more to get your money back, right? I mean, if you're going to make a profit, and if you're going to be in business, you got to think about a 20% profit margin, or it's just not worth being in the business. And that's probably we're seeing a rise in the cost of food because the production has gone down, and according to sources, the production of wheat and other grains in Russia and in the Ukraine have dropped, and this is a crisis more for, although it's an economic crisis because it puts pressure on the cost of grain. And you know what happens, Ken, is in the American producers, they say, well, we're going to raise our prices because there's less, and it's supply and demand. And they go with the market, and the market's fuel, fertilizer, all kinds of goods that are necessary to run a farm. Equipment, again, there you go, capital investment in equipment. So if your harvester is older and you need to replace it, but you don't have the money and there's no harvesters being produced, well, then you got to keep going with what you got, and then you have to find somebody to repair it, and then you got costs there, and then you have to pay more for diesel fuel. You have to pay more for workers, and there's fewer workers, so what do? It's a mess. It's got to be trucked out. You got to have some way to haul it. Railroads is one way, but you have to get that product to the big central silo areas where they can dump that grain into railroad cars. And so the producers here are saying, well, we got to make money. We got to have a 20% profit margin, or it's not worth it. We'll go under. So they raise their prices. Now there's a thing out from the World Health Organization or somebody at the UN that's estimating as many as 12 million people are going to go hungry because of the Russian-Ukraine war, because there's not enough grain to sell to, like, the Horn of Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, where there may be starvation. The Horn of Africa has always been a problem. They have droughts and internecine warfare and rebellions, and it's a mess. So they got a big problem coming down the tubes here. What are you going to? Brazil and of course India and China are producing, but they're consuming most of what they produce. Although they're starting to be exporting countries because we taught them how to grow and then fertilizers and machinery, and now they're cranking up. But the big grain producers have been traditionally Russia, Ukraine, the United States, Canada, and to a lesser extent some of the other big countries like Brazil, as far as I remember. Don't quote me on that, Ken. I may be wrong about that. That's the way it was years ago, but it's probably changed somewhat. But you got to. Not yet. No. I mean, although there are selective shortages, and you hear about that all the time. The shelves are empty of baby food, but that or baby formula, but that's not because there's a shortage. That's because there was a stoppage in production. That was the problem there. Yeah, the we got plenty of food. And that's why I laugh when I see these drives for food for the hungry children, and then you look at these kids. They look pretty healthy to me. They're not even. I mean, they're normal looking kids, but they're feed this poor baby, and she's holding on to a teddy bear and looking sad. And her body mass index looks normal to me. But I did see years ago. I think it was when Obama was running. And I saw this ad on once, and it was little Jamal is going hungry at night, and they showed Jamal, and he's about 50 pounds overweight. I'm thinking, well, what? Not enough Twinkies or Ho Hos or what? I don't. I didn't. I really didn't catch it. They didn't run that but once. I saw it, and I'm sure not many people remember seeing it, but I do. I do. Oh yeah. So it was. Let's do it, buddy. What? Well, a better one is, where did Doc get the materials for his garage door? Okay, it's all the same answer. By the way, we never got the guy's address from last week, so tell him to call back in and get that. Yeah, call in if you're listening, because we didn't get your correct address. What was his name? It was it Steve Denham or something like that? All right, let's go grab a cup of Joe. I'm Dr. Bill, your Radio MD. I'll be right back. And I'm back. Ken and I are doing a show. Did you figure out any of the answers or the questions or last week or this week yet, Ken? Yeah. Yep. Did we get Steve Denham? Yeah. Yeah, Steve, let us know your address so we can get this out to you. I packaged those mugs up for you on Monday of the last week. Oh my gosh, I was really on the ball then, baby. I guess we don't have anybody listening today. Oh, okay, all right, good, good. All right, good, okay. Now, speaking of tuning in, and you know Elon Musk, you know who he is. Famous, famous guy that started PayPal and then Tesla, and now he's got the Starlink, and he's got his rocket ship company, and so he was saying recently that he thought that there would be a slowdown worldwide, and he'd probably have to lay off some people. Well, in China, I mean, it's not a huge number, but he's hiring 25 to 50 more executive level and engineering level people. And there's a picture from May 15th, 2022, in Shanghai that there's just looks like several hundred Teslas that are lined up on the dock, getting ready to be loaded up to ship out. So apparently he's not slowing down in China, and I guess that the Chinese are buying some of his electric cars too. It's not only for foreign markets, but domestically the Chinese are buying. And so he's hiring, and he's looking for sales, R&D, supply chain people, engineers. So if you have any of these skills, you might want to give them a call over there and see if they'll hire you. I don't know if you have to speak Mandarin or not, but it might be something to look at when the economy slows down here. We'll all go over there and work. Anyway, I thought that was yeah, and so meanwhile, back in Russia, the economy there is hurting, but the ruble, their dollar, has actually held up. Everybody thought that the ruble would cave in, and that the value of it would go to zero. And what they're doing, Ken, is they're demanding that if you buy oil, you have to pay in rubles. So let's say Brazil wants to buy some oil, Brazilian national petroleum company wants to buy oil from Russia, well, they got to pay in rubles. Well, what's that mean? That means that they have to take dollars or whatever else they have, and they have to convert that into rubles. And of course, there's an exchange rate. And then as they buy the oil from Russia in rubles, Russia is decreasing the amount of rubles that are in circulation around the world. And then they hang on to those and they decrease the circulation that way, which of course, supply and demand. There's less supply with the same demand. It's worth more money. The money is it's a commodity. It's like grain. It's like anything else. And so that's how they're holding up their ruble, and they're also increasing the interest rate they're paying through their central bank, kind of like treasury bills. And so then people will come in and dump money into their system, and that gets some more money for them, and then they pay that back in a few years. But you know what BRIC is? You've heard of BRIC? BRIC is Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and they're kind of locking arms on the oil industry and the energy industry, and they're all agreeing to work together. And so Russia's got China, India, and Brazil buying oil from them and paying them in rubles. And you got to remember now, China is the largest country population-wise. India is the second largest, and Brazil is the fourth largest after us. So they've got 3 of the 5 largest economies, population bases in the world, doing business with them. So our plan to cave in the ruble, it ain't working. They're what's that? Oh yeah, they are, and they're trying to repurpose some things. The McDonald's pulled out. You heard about that? They pulled out. Well, now they're McDonald's apparently sold it to some investor. There were 200 or 300 or 400 or whatever McDonald's across the Russian country, and so that's all been sold. And the guy's taking down all the golden arches, and he's putting up hamburgers and fries, and he's going to rename it and repurpose them, and they're still going to be selling the same food because I'm sure all of the supplies were local. And so they're going to try that, but if there's no money to buy this and to go out and have a meal out, well, it's not going to help a whole lot, is it? We do? Oh my God. Yeah. Uh, hey, Anthony. Good morning to you. How you been, bud? Yep. Yep. Yeah, and it's a problem. It's a problem, and it's not going to get better anytime this year. Hopefully next year it'll start going down, and maybe if the Republicans get control of the Congress, they can force some compromise on the Democrats' part to make some moves to keep the economy from heating up and the inflation rate from heating up. By the way, I'm not sure that raising the interest rates are going to help that much, Ken. The Fed and the Democrats want to raise the rates, and hopefully they think that will cool down inflation. But what it's going to do is it's going to put pressure on the supply side, and so you're going to have companies saying, well, I don't want to pay more interest to buy a new whatchamacallit for my business, so I'm going to wait. And so then the capital goods, the need to have more production and more consumption of capital goods is not going to go up. It's going to go down. So that's another pressure on the system. And then there'll be limited number of whatchamacallits to buy, and they'll cost more. So we got a real mess in the making here, and it's starting to look like stagflation, which, as you know, I predicted, 6 months ago, before anybody was talking about it. Dr. Bill's on the ball. I'm going green, baby. I'm going green. No. I got a green screen behind me, so I can't get any greener than that. Um, well, we we hope so. Listen, Anthony, thanks for joining us, and enjoy my mugs, and we really appreciate you being a listener, and everybody out there who's listening. I love you all of you guys. I'm with you. All right, where we're thank. Bye bye. Longboat Key. That's south of the bridge. Is that down in Sarasota, Bradenton area? Or? Wow, we're reaching down there, bud. We're uptown now. You never know. Hopefully, I mean, I would like to think that somebody's watching it. By the way, we're on Facebook and YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, drbillyouradioMD.com, and I think one other platform. So I'm trying to spread it out a little bit more and see if we can get some more audience. And maybe if I get some more audience, I can start charging more for advertisement, or I can make the station give me some money for letting them run their ads. You, oh, that's true. I forgot I'm a doctor still. Oh, my God. Dr. Bill is at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. We have a full-service clinic. We have cardiac workup. We do minor surgery. The wife sees the women and does women's stuff. I don't know what that's all about. I'm not involved with that anymore. And we do general medicine. We also see Canadians and visitors, and we accept travel insurance. We accept U.S. insurance. We have a big, thriving Medicare practice. Ken, we're top notch there, I'm telling you. And you can get your COVID shots there. We've got the PCR and the antigen COVID testing. Most people just go to the drugstore now and get those kits for the antigen. But for the PCR, when you're going to travel, so we have to do a PCR on ourselves. We're going on a cruise in July, and they want a PCR within 48 hours. So our test is a rapid test. It's a 30-minute test, and it's an amplification test. It's pretty cool the way these things work. You know, it takes a little itty-bitty bit of the RNA that the virus has inside of it, and it multiplies it enough to where you can actually detect it with this machine. It's pretty neat. We are just going to the Caribbean. It's mostly just to get away and relax a little bit and take the boy with us. The boy's now a 25-year-old, 26-year-old man, but he's still a boy to me. And he's bringing his girlfriend, I think, if they're still together. I got a call from him, or a text from him this week saying, "Do you think I'm uptight and too structured?" And I'm like, "Dude, what are you talking about? You grew up with three obsessive compulsive adults." And I guess, Well, I didn't know. I thought that you guys were. Well, it's not too late. I'm sure there's plenty of rooms. Why don't you come? We'll do the we'll do the show. We can do the show from the boat. It's fun. I did one from the Mediterranean. Why not from the Caribbean? I figured there's. I did in the middle of a gale, 90-mile-an-hour winds, and the boat was listing to starboard. It was fun. Everything was sliding off the table, and people were holding on to my microphone and my computer for me. Now, the Chinese are all upset because I guess our Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, he was at a conference, the Shangri-La conference, and his speech was attacking China. And so now the Global Times, which is the official Chinese communist newspaper, English newspaper, the Chinese delegation says Indo-Pacific strategy fanning confrontation as U.S. Defense Chief made most barefaced Shangri-La speech attacking China. Barefaced, wow. So, and they say they will never let go of Taiwan. They will never give up on Taiwan. I think we ought to just annex Taiwan, make them the 51st state. What do you think? Would that... No, they won't. That shouldn't bother them. They'll leave us alone. What do you think? Or leave Taiwan alone. Poor Taiwan. I mean, can you imagine living in a country like Taiwan or South Korea where you never know if you're going to be attacked the next day? My wife's cousin Hong, his wife, I call her Cutie Pie. She's a real nice lady, and we have a real good relationship. I haven't seen her in a few years, and she said she was so envious of us, of me, young Jew, and I living in the United States because we're protected from the Chinese and the North Koreans and the Japanese. You know, we have a big, strong country, and we're not likely to be attacked. And if we are, we can fight back. But, you know, living in South Korea, you've got China on your west, you've got Japan on the east, and you've got North Korea on your north border. And that's a little frightening because all three have been known to attack the Koreans, the South Koreans, at one point or another throughout history. And she said it's really terrible that she wakes up in the morning, and I'm sure for a lot of the women it's anxiety-provoking to think that they may have an invasion at any moment. So we don't know how lucky we are, my friend. We just... Oh, she wouldn't leave her husband, and he didn't want to come over here. He was a big wig at the second largest university in the country. He was the dean of the School of Business, and I think it's called Daegu University, and that was the second largest university in the country in South Korea. So he was a big wig, and he's not going to leave. He's got a real comfortable lifestyle there. They have a very nice condominium that they own, and it backs up to a small mountain and some beautiful wooded area. And then he's got a couple of units like timeshares or vacation units here and there around the country. So he's doing well. He ain't going nowhere. Plus, and you know, the Korean Peninsula is great for that. There's plenty of low mountains and hills. You can burrow right in there and get yourself protected. But you have to be careful because in the old days they used to bury people on the hillsides, and they make these big mounds. The government outlawed that now. You have to be buried in cemeteries now. But so you start digging, and you might dig right into a few dead bodies. And we went and visited father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather. And, you know, so father was buried in a cemetery, in a Catholic cemetery, but grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather were all buried on the hillside. And so there are these big mounds, and then you pay the local farmer to take care of it, and then you go out there once every year or two and take a look. And of course, the farmer's getting the money and not keeping it cut, but that's true, I'm sure. Not necessarily. You'll be walking up a hill and there'll be a big mound, you know, 6, 8 foot high mound or 4 foot high mound, and you'll know that that is a burial site. It's interesting. Oh my gosh! And South Korea is so progressive, and their economy is so good, and Seoul, South Korea is just a beautiful city. It's much nicer than any U.S. city, at least any of the big old U.S. cities like New York and Chicago and L.A. It's just so modern, and the subway system is extensive, and everything's neat and clean. And of course, there's more homogeneity of the population, and there's a whole different mindset about how you approach life, and cleanliness is important, and nonviolence is important. They don't have much crime. It's just a different world. But no, not much of one. No. Their welfare system is fairly extensive. They even pay the grandmothers. The government will pay the grandmothers to take care of the kids, the grandkids, so the parents can go to work, which I think is not a bad idea. Rather than paying for daycare, subsidizing daycare, just pay grandma. I mean, it gives her something to do, and the kids are more comfortable with their own grandmother than they are with somebody. And they'll get socialized because the grandmas take them down to the market and they play with other kids. And grandma can do that. And by the way, speaking of China, the Chinese have hit a 40,000 kilometer mark in their high-speed railroad network. 40,000 kilometers, so that's about 24,000 miles of high-speed trains across the country. And I've been on one of them. They're nice. They're nice trains. So they're cranking along, and they're projecting 6 to 7% growth this year in China. Of course, they're still considered an emerging, developing country, but they're looking better and better every year. If we only could get rid of the communists, I'd go over there and hang out a while. But I don't. Now I don't know. Yeah, I don't. It's a huge country. There's a lot to see and a lot to do, and people are friendly, from what I could tell. I mean, of course, in Beijing, it's a big city, and everybody's busy. But you go to Xi'an or some of the other cities, people are just as nice as they can be. Did you hear that Mexico is disbanding this migrant caravan that's set for the U.S.? I don't know if that's real or not, but they said during the Americas Summit that they decided they would disband this group. They'll probably reform, though. And apparently the Mexicans have agreed to expand their acceptance and their immigration policy so that some of these people will stay or be encouraged to stay in Mexico. I don't know how well that'll work, and they'll be on a fast track for a green card and job creation and all that. We'll see what happens there, Ken. I don't know. I'm not real hopeful, because I think that basically the only way you're going to stop this is just to say no. You can't come in. But what am I? Who am I? Who am I to say anything about this? I am. Oh my God. Goodbye Golden Arches and rebranded McDonald's to open in Russia. Big news there. Did you hear the judge, magistrate judge, federal judge, he sided with Home Depot after the company prevented employees from wearing Black Lives Matter imagery. Yeah. And so they're appealing that, I'm sure. And that's good, though. It's necessary. Yeah. And then Prince Charles, just one last thing real quick. Prince Charles was told by Parliament to shut his mouth, and he's meddling in politics amid immigration comment backlash. I guess they're sending immigrants back to Rwanda, and he's saying that's not right. And Parliament's saying, dude, you're the king. You don't get to say that anymore. I didn't know that. 20 seconds. All right, I'm Dr. Bill, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. You guys come and see me. I'm out of here, buddy. I love you, Ken. I love everybody out there. Have a great week.